I'm Ellie Kim. I'm transferring to Reed College this fall in Portland, Oregon, where I'll be pursuing political science and independent journalism. I've been interning for Project Censored for the past year under director Mickey Huff, and I was recently elected as one of the officers for the Global Critical Media Literacy Project, coordinated by Nolan Higdon. I noticed in my generation particularly, a lot of people are not necessarily blind to the fact that we're being fed corporate propaganda, but it's the students don't really have the tools to navigate through all the junk that's out there, and so what happens is they become cynical and they choose to disassociate themselves from political life and from news. But news media is the source, is the control of information, and essentially that's how power is controlled or suppressed. And so I encourage students to hone their media literacy skills. That's what we're going to be doing with the GCMLP project. And I encourage students to pay more attention and think critically, because as Michael Perenni said, I always quote Perenni, but he says in a nutshell that people choose to detach from political life because it is in such an awful state, but you can never remove politics from your life. And so if we want to better the world we live in and for our kids to grow up in an equitable society, we're the people that need to change. I'm going to be talking with a panel of students and co-interns that we have been working collectively on researching and writing an article. It's now published on the Project Censored website. It's about gender bias in the media. So I will specifically be talking about gender bias on politicians in the media during midterm and presidential campaigns and how it obstructs political parity. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. Yeah, like Crystal said, I focused on the gender bias in media covering political campaigns. Well, first, 51% of our population is women. Congress, however, only 18% of Congress is made up of women, so that's hardly a representative system. Our society remains one that appears to fear women occupying powerful leadership positions, and our system of leadership is one that routinely restricts power from a particular group. And the group that does have power is typically the dominant group, the white, middle-aged, and older men, and it has been this way since the inception of the United States. But the threat that exists it's hopeful for me, because threat only exists when there's fear of losing power, in having superiority, and in sustaining a hierarchy. And so because there's this threat, while it could be scary or even dangerous for women to assert themselves and become dominant, it means the capacity to do so exists. So bias coverage in the corporate news is reflective of society's attitudes and beliefs about women in positions of leadership and power. It perpetuates and sustains gender stereotypes because the media is immense in shaping the national dialogue. Gender bias is prevalent in our society, and that hinders women from occupying high positions of power. And this not only has a profound effect on election outcomes, but also on the likelihood that women are going to run for office. Cornel West, he's a professor, he talks about something called nihilistic threat, and he talks about Black communities, but it's something that's pervasive in our culture in the United States, and this is a loss of self-efficacy and human agency, and this obstructs people are disillusioned by these social forces that we think are out of our control, and so women don't believe that they can perform as well as men, whether it's in business or in politics. But there are numerous studies that show that women perform just as well as, if not better, than men at high positions of power. There's also an important social psychology study that was done in 2010, and it says that women who violate prescriptive gender norms are penalized interpersonally and experience backlash. In violating gender norms, they mean showing dominance, expressing disagreement, or being highly assertive. Now, these are all traits of running a political campaign. And so our culture is one that associates masculinity with leadership qualities, with, like Crystal was saying, with strength, ambition, competitiveness, and dominance. Femininity, on the other hand, is associated with commonality, sensitivity, concern, caring for others. Hillary Clinton is a good example of where this turns into a catch-22. So in demonstrating her agency and proving that she was qualified, whether we agree with her policies or not, in proving her agency, she crossed that line of femininity and masculinity. So at first she was criticized for being too masculine, for not having emotion, for being the Iron Maiden, and for her pantsuits, out of all things. But then in 2008, when she was being interviewed one time, her eyes watered up because it was a sensitive issue, and suddenly the script was flipped and she was too soft. Can a woman who tears up on camera run our country? And so that was one of the main issues of this catch-22, that no matter what you do in asserting yourself, women were always sustained in the inferiority half of the social dichotomy, the gender dichotomy between males and females. In my research, I also found that the gender role of caretaker was very prevalent in political campaigns, and it was a huge double standard. Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Sarah Palin, again, whether you agree with their policies or not, they were not asked on their where they stand on policy issues, but they were asked, can you be a leader while you have children? How are you going to balance your time when you have children? And then you look at Mitt Romney. How many kids does he have? How many grandkids does he have? A lot of men in politics, they have families as well, but their gender role is not prescribed to them to be caretaker. Another interesting study, and actually a book called Women for President, Media Bias in 9 Campaigns, was written by Erica Falk, and she covers campaign coverage all the way from 1872, when the first woman, Victoria Woodhull, ran, all the way up to 2008, and I suspect that she will come out with another book after 2016, but her findings show that men, for the past almost 130 years, receive substantial media attention, including more issue-based coverage and longer, more frequent stories than the women running in the same race. She also did a very extensive, she collected all print articles, and in a rather tedious but effective manner, she counted how many times physical descriptions showed up about women versus men, and women were described physically, whether it's their hair or their clothing or their demeanor, 4 times more than men. And so this leads people to the assumption that women are qualified based on how they look. So in a nutshell, women, when they're recognized as women first and candidates second, this trivializes their political record, their agendas, and their past achievements. For example, like I said, Hillary, she was always criticized about her pantsuit, but other various aspects that are heavily criticized in the media are her age, figure, wardrobe. And again, this is the gender role that women are meant to be objectified. Women are meant to be judged and characterized by how they look rather than what they have to offer. So I don't want to go too far over, but because this is the What's Possible conference and we talk about solutions as well, one of the things is that women have been trying to fix these norms themselves by working harder to balance work and home, by undertaking extra training, by attempting to break the glass ceiling. But if we're really serious about creating a fair and productive future for young women like us, I believe that we don't need to fix the women themselves, but it's we need to work with men, because whether it's in business or media, corporations are overwhelmingly run by men, and so men have the significant power to change outcomes for women in the world. And yesterday, when the Project Censored panel was up here, and Mickey and everyone else was talking about how academics must also be activists. I believe we need to educate leaders and academics to create greater female participation, to challenge gender bias, stereotypes, and traditional views, and we need to reframe the way that we think about women. We need to stop placing limitations on our desires and our abilities to pursue ambitious, successful careers, because we all have the capacity to. Lastly, I strongly believe that what we're doing is a case for encompassing more voices and talking to each other rather than about each other. Working with a community at a local level is a great way to highlight examples, and this, in my personal experience, I found it's empowering and it's safe. I see other young women like me who are unafraid to express how they feel and to pursue what they want to, regardless of the fact that they are women. And so seeing other women going after something like that, it motivates me to keep doing what I'm doing. And with that, I will pass it on to Lisa.